Now I'm going to try to make this a quick intro because this is already a long tie, and I found the pattern in John Shewey's classic Steelhead Flies from 2015. Now it's not entirely clear who created this fly, but we know the Bekeart in the name was Phil Baldwin Bekeart. Now Phil's father came to California in 1849 during the first gold rush, but he decided he didn't want to be a gold miner, so he opened up a gunsmith and gun sale shop in San Francisco. Now, Phil grew up in and around this business and was a very well-respected marksman and gunsmith in his own right, but he was also a dedicated fly fisherman. And he hung out with some of the elite sportsmen of the day, including one John S. Benn, who was one of the most renowned West Coast fly tyers of the time. And some folks think this fly was likely created by Benn and just named after his friend Phil Bekeart. Or maybe Phil came up with it and just named it after himself, which is what Alfred Courtney Williams said in his 1932 book, Trout Flies. Either way, it's definitely a classic steelhead pattern. Now, I'm not going to call this a forgotten fly. I mean, it is in Shewey's book, but it's definitely a lesser known pattern, and it's definitely a pretty cool fly. So there it is in the vise, a Bekeart special. Now, it's certainly a festive looking pattern, and it's not a terribly difficult tie, but it's not a quick tie because there's just a lot going on. I'm going to be tying this on a size 4, it's a 3x long salmon hook. And I'm going to be using some black thread. If you notice on these bends right here, sometimes I will just try to fill in that little gap right there with my thread. Probably not a big deal if you don't do that, but let's go ahead and catch our thread in, take it back to the start of the bend. And as with a lot of these old salmon, steelhead flies, we do have a tag. This is a medium oval tinsel in gold. And I'm going to catch it in right here. You don't have to worry about creating a little step down because we have a Peacock herl butt. But what I will do, where my thread is, that's where I'm going to stop wrapping the tag. But I'm going to catch this in just far back enough where I can get, I think, 6 wraps. So I'm going to have 6 wraps between where this tinsel is and where my thread is, but I'm going to go ahead and take 3 big open loose wraps right there just to get this out of my way. Now I'm going to put 6 tight wraps right here. Okay, and if you're happy with those, remember we've got 3 wraps right here. We can back it off, and our thread is hanging right here where we want to catch this off. We'll do a few extra wraps just to make sure we got it before we snip this. And I'm going to put a few more wraps right here just to try to build this up ever so slightly because I don't really want my tail to be flared up. I want it kind of laying flat. And this is about 12 or 15 fibers from red strung saddle hackle. And it's not terribly long. Let's go about right there, a pinch wrap, a couple more, and see if I don't put these wraps too tight, I can keep my tail sticking straight back. That's kind of what I'm going for here. Now go ahead and catch these in and snip this. And the next thing I'm going to catch in is a small butt with Peacock herl. So this is 3 strands right here. Let's take our thread back just a hair. Catch this in right back here to where the tail is. Okay, and then a few wraps up. I'm going to go ahead and snip these. Again, it's not a real significant butt. I think these 3 herls right here will be thick enough, and maybe 4 wraps or so to where we get up to here where our thread is. Now hold on to that Peacock herl. We have a little bit more of it we're going to do up front. But before that, let's catch in some Mylar tinsel. And this is a size 14, which I think is a medium. And I want the gold to be seen, so I'm going to catch it in with the gold toward the hook. Now with our thread up front, let's catch in some red floss. Just standard red floss, silk if you got it, whatever you got. We're going to catch it in up front, and then we're going to wrap it down and back. So we'll end up with 2 layers. And my goal here will just be to keep it kind of smooth. Doesn't always happen, but I want to cover all this black thread and keep it as smooth as possible. Now that's not perfectly smooth, but it's pretty enough. Let's go ahead and snip that off. Now I'm just going to wrap this rib with the gold showing, and up to you how close or how far apart you want these. I think just whatever is going to look good. And don't worry about that last wrap if it's not even. It's going to be covered with this next component, which is more peacock herl. So take this back. Oh, we're going to make this one probably the same size as the butt, maybe a little bit bigger. It will help, with this collar hackle. If you have it a little bit thicker, it might just help that collar hackle flare out a little bit. So again, this is 3 strands. And don't be afraid to wrap them on top of each other if you want to build a little bit more bulk here. And for our collar hackle, just red strung saddle hackle and some pretty long fibers. What I'll do here, just take this one feather and pull it back, try to create a little catch-in point right here. Maybe fold that back, really catch it in. Now we've still got that little tip right here to contend with. But just go ahead and wrap this. And these are going to be long fibers and not real sparse. I mean, this is not a great feather, but 4 wraps might give you enough for this nice swept back collar hackle up here. And before I snip that off, I'm going to go ahead and pull everything back. This might make it a little bit easier. We'll ramp this back up. And now we can snip this excess. Got a couple of rogue fibers right there I could trim or just, force them into position. So there we go. I like that collar. It's pretty much all the way around it. Now let's put on the wing, just some mottled turkey slips. And this is a dark cinnamon, about the length of the body right there. I think that's going to look good. And just 2 slips. I got the concave sides together. And I'm going to grab everything and the hook and the feathers, a loose pinch wrap right there, and then bring it up tight on my side right here. And then we'll do a couple more wraps. If you don't have them positioned right, you can still back those wraps off and redo it. You get about 3 attempts on a wing like this. I think we're going to be fine with that one. So I'm going to go ahead and put some tighter wraps going forward to really bind these in. And I didn't mention, I made these slips less than a hook gap. A lot of old school winged wet flies, the wings will be a hook gap. I think it looked a little bit better, and it's certainly a little bit easier if you make them a little smaller. Now we could go ahead and just wrap up some ostrich herl for the head, but if you've got some, jungle cock eyes, they look really good on this pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and then just catch a couple of them in right here. Try not to mangle up that collar. Okay, I think let's see if we can flare that up just a little bit right there. I think that's going to work. Let's put some tight wraps. And I'll put a matching one on this side. Now before I do my head out of ostrich herl, I'm going to build up a little bit of bulk right here because the ostrich herl is not real thick. If you have a little bit of a thicker head right here, it's going to make your ostrich herl look like it's a little bit bulkier. So black ostrich herl right here, and I'm going to catch it in with enough on the front that I can snip it. This stuff, can't really treat it like peacock herl. It's a little bit stronger and you can't just break it off as easily. You probably could, but it's probably safer just to snip it. Now with our thread up here, at the back of the eye where the front of our head's going to be, just go ahead and wrap this up. And 5 or 6 wraps going down this little ramp to where we want to catch it off. And look at that, wouldn't you know it, I've kind of mangled up that jungle cock right there. Is that fixable? Maybe. It's certainly a fishable fly. That jungle cock's sticking a little bit up, but you know what? I'm okay with it. Let's go ahead and finish this head. Just as long as you're not clobbering up your eye right there, you should be good to go. A few extra wraps and whip finish it. Now take a look, do we have any cleanup here? Yeah, I don't know. I kind of messed up that jungle cock eye right there, and it's not sticking up really where I want it. But overall, it's still a pretty festive and cool looking pattern. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.